Great.
I wanted to thank you for taking time to speak with me today.
It's my pleasure, man. I want to say sorry that I had to postpone once, but I got something pretty nasty, and yeah, I mean, I could have done it, but I don't think it makes that great of an interview, you know.
Sure, absolutely. Um, how'd the recording go for you this time around?
A recording of the album.
Yes.
Oh well, it's to me it feels like it was ages ago because
Mm.
it's to me it feels. I mean, I know some of my bandmates say it feels like it was not that long ago. In reality, it was. I mean, if we are counting pre-production and stuff, then we go way back, even before I actually joined the band. But actual recording, I would say a little bit less than a year and a half ago, we were done with the record. We went to the studio of a good friend of ours, and we did pre-production there for a week, I believe. Was It was a really cool approach. I think there's a lot of bands who don't necessarily actually do that nowadays.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of old school, but it's the professional way to do it as well, and it was really great, and it really improved the record. And we even had our producer Ike Freeze, known for his work with Halloween and Deep Purple and all the greats. He drove up there. It was all the way up in the very north of Germany, where also generally the band is based. And yeah, about a week of pre-production, and then we started with written guitars, and well, of course, we started with drums. The usual drums were tracked in that very same studio, and then written guitars were all done by Ricky at his own studio, the Rat Toad. Bass as well, and then lastly lead guitars and vocals were done in Chameleon Studios in Hamburg with Ike Freeze, which is the studio where, I mean, you name it, Purple work or record at, and Halloween actually, and a lot of guys. It's a really great studio.
And I wanted to ask you, did you guys how long as far as the writing of the material? Um, from first track to last track, did you pretty much have everything set in stone before you entered the studio?
Well, sorry, it was as I said, we did have that 1 week of pre-production, and that was
Mhm.
a lot of changes were done in that 1 week, and that was the you know what that's what it's meant for at the end of the day,
Yeah.
and so from that point on, I mean, songs pretty much remained the way they were from pre-production on. We did a lot of changing of stuff and rearranging a bit, and actually quite a bit, for some specific songs anyway. And yeah, it was a quite some work done, but it was fun, and it really improved those certain songs and overall the record in this way. But otherwise, yeah, it's been a pretty, in general, it's been a pretty long process of writing the record, which goes, as I said, even way back before I even joined the band. Because when I joined the band, which was initially in the very end of 2023, no, 2022, sorry, very end of 2022, and the whole thing was, or most of it was basically done, and they wanted to actually have some faster songs, like a couple of faster tunes, and actually that's when I managed to, I mean, I guess inspiration came, and I came up with two songs, and those two are uh, Burning Prophets and Prisoner of Fate, which is the also the one that was the latest single with the music video.
Yes.
But apart from that, it's been a long process of songwriting, and as I said, then there was a solid week just where 24/7 in the studio. We you know you are there, you sleep there, you're as 24/7 literally, and it's all about working and initially sitting down with Ike and going through each song and putting notes down and making sure everything is perfect, really, if you
Right.
will.
And one of the tracks I wanted to speak of is Together Apart. I wanted to ask if you could take me through that one.
Well, that's a song that was pretty. It was definitely, I believe, it was one of the ones that was written before I joined. I don't know when exactly. It was not one of the very first one for sure. That's what I know. And it's a Ricky song, and I think it's a pretty cool song, isn't it? It's a cool contrast, and we managed to squeeze in a ballad like that without being cheesy, as they say, or
Right.
whatever people wanna call it. Um, and yeah, it's a Ricky song, and it's both musically in terms of he is the songwriter, and also lyrically, it's something personal for him. So yeah, that's Together Apart.
And I want to go the other way with you. I wanted to ask you about another track that I truly enjoy, and that's Atmosphere.
Atmosphere. I believe that's the joint work of Ricky and Lawrence, our bass player, and I also really like that track. It's also a standout one, I think. Different. It's not something that it's necessarily the type of track that's on a thrash record,
Sure.
if you will, or whatever. But yeah, it's yet another song that was written before I joined the band. I mean, I guess most of the or all the songs that appeared were written before I joined the band, and then it was only about rearranging and adding stuff. But this one we made in pre-production week. We made it sort of more atmospheric, and I would even go say as far say spooky and stuff. And then Ricky was in the studio with doing the vocals, and it then Ike came, and then him came up with that intro bit with the keys, and then it became even more spooky. I love it. I'm glad that you enjoyed that one.
And I wanted to ask you as well, if you could take me back in time, at what age did you begin your career, and what steps have you taken to evolve along your career?
Oh, so way back, I was around 11, 12-ish when I started learning the guitar. And at the time, it was just being very, just hearing Metallica and more specifically the early stuff from my parents and hearing stuff like Black Sabbath, all the classics, and being really and Ozzy too, the solo stuff. And one of my earliest influences was Randy Rhoads, like a very big influence. It was just discovering this music at a very early age, younger, before I was even 10 years old, I guess, 8 or around that age, and just discovering that music and just really always being fascinated with the sound of the guitar and that music, and always thinking sort of, learning the guitar was something I would really love to do. And then it happened. As I said, I started when I was about 11, 12, and then I was like instantly hooked, and I was obsessed with it. I mean, I still am, but I feel like back then it was like a full-on obsession, because that's all I really did, and I was progressing quickly, and then it didn't took long until I started basically forming bands and or joining bands in my area. At the time, I was still. Nowadays, I'm based in Denmark, but at the time, I was still in my home country of Bulgaria. And joining bands, forming bands in the area, playing Metallica and Priest covers, whatever, all the stuff everyone goes through. And yeah, and it always sort of somehow I just never stopped doing it. I never stopped progressing at my instrument, and it sort of like always somehow went to the next step just because as I said, I never stopped. I stubbornness, I guess, or I guess that's how you do it. And yeah, eventually it started being switching gradually to more and more original music. Me coming up with my own stuff and joining other bands to playing rather original music than covers at this point in time. This would mean already like at 15, 16 years old. And then around that point, I moved to Denmark, relocated to Denmark. I was 15, relocated with my family, and it never really stopped. It was just relocated and just kept doing what I did, and then at this point already releasing records and playing gigs all over Denmark and other places. And then I guess my one of the milestones was I was 19, so 2019 I got the gig in Agent Steel, which was something really big for me, as it's one of those bands that it's one of those situations where it's a classic, legendary band that you're a fan of, and you've been a fan of ever since you were a kid. And there you are as a in your late teens, and you're part of that band. That was a really cool experience, and especially especially getting to write a lot of music for the record that eventually came out in 21, the No Other Gods Before Me record. So I mean, I gotta say thanks to vocalist John Cyrus for this opportunity. And then yeah, always doing a lot of music. I mean, at some point I left Agent Steel, I guess around 22-ish, and I've been doing also a lot of. I mean, No Other Gods was sort of the record it was the biggest studio record that I had done that at that point in time. So biggest reach out there. So it was the my biggest platform at the time for people to both hear my songwriting, but also in general just my guitar playing. And that's around the time when I also was involved in a lot of session work, doing guest solos or whatever, and collaborating with bands and projects. Mostly guest solo stuff, but sometimes there's been songwriting, and it's just really being surrounded by music, and yeah, and then as I said, at the very end of 2022, things I got called up by Ricky and asked if I was interested in joining Rezet, and as they say, the rest is history, and here we are now.
And I wanted to ask you as well. You've been in the business for a while. I wanted to ask you, do you have different setups that you'd like to go to in the studio in comparison to going live?
You mean different setups in terms of the equipment used, correct?
Yeah, equipment like pick size, etc.
Well, no, I mean when it comes to guitars, I use pretty much the same thing, both live and in studio. I've been most of my career I've been using Jackson guitars, for example, and yeah, that's the main thing I use still and exclusively. Actually, not just the main, but exclusively. And then in the studio, I mean, for example, give an example with the Rezet record. all guitars were just recorded with a Jackson guitar, and it was only one guitar too. And it's
Wow.
pretty interesting because it's interesting because it was also the same configuration, both guitar wise and amp wise, everything. And it somehow sounds to me, and some other people have mentioned that too. The guitar sounds different on the different songs somehow. I guess it's a feel thing. But yeah, when we were in the studio, as I said, this same guitar, but we used all real amps for. I mean, rhythm guitars was the Kemper profiler, but for lead guitars it was all real amps, and which is not. I mean, that's something that's always a variable when you're
Sure.
playing live, the backline stuff, but. Specifically for the Rezet record, which because that's a really I love the guitar sound on that, and the general sound of the record, the production of the record. But guitars, I used for the guitar nerds out there, I used a PV 5150. Was that Mark One actually, the first one, and that went into a Marshall JCM 800, the 1960 cabinet, and there was a some custom tube screamer pedal that I used, and that was it. It's a pretty simple setup, but I mean that's all you need.
Right. And I wanted to ask you as well, what lies ahead for the band? What can fans look for next?
Well, I mean, we just dropped the record, of course, now on August 30th, and we are planning our. It is basically about a world tour now, starting in Europe from next year. So we are working on that, and people should just stay in tune because really soon there's going to be announcements regarding that. But yeah, in terms of future plans, it's just about going out there and touring that record all over the world.
And I wanted to ask you is speaking on the record, what's the best way to get a hold of a copy and any merchandise that you have?
It's pretty much available everywhere. And you can buy it directly from the label Vine Creek, which is European based. I'm not sure right now as far as because you are in the States, and for the American listeners, I can't really say for sure right off the top of my head about a main American distributor, but there sure is one. I
Okay.
mean, probably even I mean, Reigning Phoenix Music is also technically an American label. So I'm not sure if they brought that out to the States, but the easiest way is just visit our socials, and there's the links is everywhere. The link tree type of thing with
Sure.
all the distributors are basically all you need. So I'm sure there's anyone can get a hold of it fairly easy.
And were there any tracks that didn't make the album?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I know that there was some tracks. Actually, there was that was just being talked. I was just reading an interview for an Italian magazine that our drummer gave, and it reminded me that the last track of the record, Into the Abyss, it was, I guess, sort of a song that we somehow maybe even thought about trashing at the time, for because it was that was one of the songs that received the biggest makeover, if you will, during that pre-production week. So I guess this was the closest to that thing, but it's still it still made it, and I'm happy that it did because it is one of my favorites on the record. But apart from that, I don't think that there was not really an actual song that didn't make it.
And lastly, I wanted to ask you, my friend, if you could give your fans any message, what would that message be?
Come again, please.
If you could give your fans any message, what would that message be?
Oh, I mean, I really want to thank. I mean, response to the record has been great, and I really want to thank everyone for that. Really, it means a lot. I already said it many times. I am humbled, and I keep getting humbled, and we've gotten some great reviews. So thanks to the media as well for that. But it's all about the fans, and thank you, and we really hope to, on behalf of the whole band, I can say we really hope to see you on tour from next year on, anywhere and everywhere in the world, you know.
That's right. Well, I wanted to take a moment to thank you, my friend, for giving me an interview today to talk about an album that I loved from top to bottom.
It's all my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, my friend, and you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.